Hello everyone, welcome to ChessWiser. I'm going to show you the game played between Arjun Erigaisi and Svane Fredrik from Fide's Grand Swiss 2023, and it was round number 1. With the white pieces, Arjun was handling the white pieces, so he starts the game with the 1 d4. Frederick goes knight f6. So we are seeing the common opening move orders, and we are transposing into them. Queen's Gambit decline, so d5, and then this is interesting choice by Arjun, because in this position you want to keep the tension as long as possible, because if you immediately relieve the tension, actually you are kind of helping the light square bishop to see the world. In most of these cases, against the queen's pawn, black is going to struggle developing the dark square bishop, or sorry, light square bishop. But by doing this transaction immediately, he paves the way for the light square bishop. And then knight goes to c3, bishop to b4, getting ready to castle. Bishop f4, trying to close down the pawn chain after developing the bishop. So it goes knight to e4, threatening to take on c3 twice. So it is defended with rook c1, and also it sees the semi-open file now. Knight to d7, and here Arjun goes knight to d2, and knight to d2 comes with a threat. So now the threat is to take on d5 and trap the queen. So he plays knight takes d2 immediately. And here you don't want to bring the bishop back, because it is already developed, so you don't want to move the same piece again without any great purpose. So he goes queen takes d2, and then because we have this move a3 immediately, and then we have rook also controlling on c3, so we don't have to worry about this little pin. So he plays pawn c6, consolidating the center, and then he plays a3, and then bishop goes e7. So here there is one small trick, or the trap is available. This is general idea. It is not going to work in this particular position. I'll just show you. You can try this trap in one of your games, but it is not going to work if your opponent is having the stronger counter attack. Anyway, let me just show you that. So knight takes d5 can be played in many variations. So after c takes d5, and then we can converge on c7 with the bishop c7, just trapping the queen. But in this case, now the bishop can go to g5, attack, create the counter attack on the queen. So that is the problem. Otherwise, you can simply trap the queen. This is one of the main traps are available in the Queen's Gambit decline line. So going back in the game, he plays e3 and then knight f6, getting ready to develop the bishop, as well as trying to control the e4 square once more. So h4. Here Arjun says, if you really want to go on the king side, I'm ready to attack you on the king side. That's why he plays h4. But Frederick says, I am not worried, or I am not afraid of your h4. Let me castle on the king side. And here after this castle, he plays bishop d3. And instead of castling, this is the right time to bring the bishop to f5. So you are getting a nice diagonal for the bishop. So here instead of castling, he could have done that. And then maybe the game continued with the bishop d3, bishop e2. Even if you place bishop to d3, if you want, you can exchange the bishops off the board, or you can go bishop e2, and then black castles, and game continues, and black already neutralized the game. But in this position, he simply castles, which allowed Arjun to put the bishop on this long diagonal, and then he goes g6. He knows this is a strong bishop pointing at the king side, so he goes g6. Sometimes this is like an engagement point for our pawns. When the pawn was sitting on the g7 square, we will have to if you really want to push the h1, you have to go h5 and then h6. But now, as the pawn moves down to g6, now we have the access on h5 itself. In case if you need, we can engage with the pawn structure immediately. So g6, and then he goes bishop g5, rook e8. And one thing was unclear, because Arjun king is still in the center. It is like move number 15. He plays pawn f3. What is his plan? And it was played in the game also. So his plan was to push the e pawn, build up a huge center, attack on the king side, and get the king into safety via king d1, king c2 idea. So f3, and then he goes king g7. In some cases, our rook, black rook needs to be on h8 to defend the h5. So he prepares that move, and also he overprotects this knight in case if it is required. So he goes king to d1. He wants to push. He wants to push the pawn on e4. But he cannot do it immediately, because the rook is on against the king. So he goes king to d1, and then knight to g8, trying to exchange the bishops off the board. And here he declines the bishop offer by bishop f4. Instead of that, if he captured this one, black would be better, because now there is pressure on 2 pawns. Now it is being defended, but you will have to defend this with awkward moves such as king to e2. Otherwise, if you move the rook, then you are going to lose the h pawn. So here he plays bishop f4, avoiding all these complications. So he goes bishop takes h4, which actually helps white in this position because he wants to open up the h file, and by capturing this pawn, black is helping him. So after e4, if you ask one question, that is, where is the strong point available for the black? It is the center. So he goes e4, questioning the same. Bishop e6 develops the last piece out of the back rank. c2 and then h6. So after h6, he may play the move pawn to g5. So he goes g4. So after g4, he plays rook to c8. The idea is very simple. He wants to, in case if you trade, towards the center, he's going to open up the c file and do some, tactical ideas along the c file. So considering this, he simply closes the pawn chain, not the pawn chain, maybe the file. And one more thing, with this last move, Arjun has opened the line for the bishop. So that is also there. So going back in this position, instead of playing rook to c8, there is only one way to neutralize the game, that is by playing bishop g5. So this is the only way. So after bishop into g5, you can go queen takes g5, and then you can even trade the queens off the board, and then the game would be equal. So going back in the game, he plays rook c8, which allows Arjun to play this move e5. Because our bishop is not going to do much on this diagonal, right? We want our bishop on this diagonal, so that's not a problem. So you are also strengthening your center because you want to attack on the king side, so you don't want to open up the center. And your opponent would like to do that, right? So he goes c5 immediately. So one of the top move recommended by the engine. After c5, he goes bishop e3, defending this weak point. Again, in this position, you will have to play something like king b1, prepare to meet pawn takes pawn because of the pin. So you will have to move the knight away, right? You can prepare this move also. So that's why computer wants to play the move king to b1. But what happens here, he plays bishop e3, which can, or in this position, actually black can play this move pawn to c4, which can threaten the bishop, and for the rest of the game your bishop is going to be dead, because you don't have this fantastic diagonal for the bishop. You are just staring at your own pawn and your rook. So it is not going to work out much. So maybe the game can continue with the pawn f5 and then g into f5, bishop f5 check. Black is kind of better already. So going back in the game, he goes g5, and the c4 was the critical moment. I think here white, again, he has the advantage, so he plays king b1. So considering this idea, so c takes d4 was played in the game, and in this position, after bishop takes d4, so he places the bishop against the king. This is one of the good moves. And going back, so bishop takes d4, and then he goes knight e7. So another mistake by black. It's because of the attack white is preparing on the king side. So after bishop takes d4, there is only one way to, it is not even going to equalize the game. You can try with this move like bishop g3. Idea is to put the bishop on f4, trying to ski with the queen, or you can even exchange the dark square bishop off the board, and then you can improve the knight's position. But in the game, he plays knight e7, which allows, if you want to pause the video, you can pause the video and try to find what white can play in this position. So Arjun played one of the 3 brilliant moves in the game, that is rook takes h4. Okay, so in this position, this is the only move or one of the few moves to gain the advantage, but this is the top move. So rook takes h4, sacks the rook, and then he goes g into h4, and then he plays rook h1. So here in this position, rook h1 is not the accurate way to continue the attack. So he may have to play this move pawn to f4 and then f5 ideas. So in this position, black needs to play this move rook h8. Why rook h8? It's very typical idea when your opponent is trying to open up the h file, attack on the h file. So you need to overprotect the h file. So there is no particular defender are available, because only the king is always the weak defender. So we don't have to consider the king as a defender, right? So rook h8 was a critical move for black, and then after rook takes h4, knight c6, black is already better. But in the game, he goes knight c6, threatening the undefended bishop. It's a very logical move, but the problem is he goes bishop f2, and he gives up a pawn here, and Frederick simply takes the pawn and blunders the game again. So he goes bishop to h4, threatening the queen, and he plays f6, another grave blunder, because again, if you pause the video, you can try to pause the video and try to find what is the best way to finish the game. So here Arjun plays the second brilliant move, that is queen takes h6, and then you cannot touch the queens because of bishop f6 mate. So simple mate threat he missed because he was around he was having around less than a minute, so he was playing with the increment only, Frederick. So he goes queen takes h6 check, and then king f7 was played, and then the third sacrifice, that is bishop to g6 check. So unleashing this another piece which was waiting from the at the beginning. So knight takes g6 was played, and then queen takes h7 check, king f8, and then he simply takes the knight. So here after queen takes g6, he goes rook c6, threatening some kind of discovery, but still Arjun goes bishop into f6 because of the rook h8 check is there for the follow-up. So bishop f5 check was given, and then queen takes f5, and then he played rook takes f5, but he completely missed the rook h8 check, and then king is e7, knight takes d5 check, that is the fork, and he gives up the queen. And then in the 37th move, where Arjun played this rook takes e8 check, in this position Svane Fredrik simply resigned the game. He resigns because it's simple reason. So he inserts this intermezzo where you have to respond for the check. So if you simply take, you are going to be or you are going to play against this queen, and also you have these couple of passes, so it's easy win for white. I hope you enjoyed this quick review of this game. Your thoughts, let me know in the comment section below, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and still if you are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please consider subscribing to the channel. As usual, this is Chess Wiser, your wise choice to improve your chess.